Oh my God, here we are. A lot of help with James Lott Jr. Welcome this morning. It is Tuesday morning. Welcome, welcome, welcome. You're gonna hear content noises. I have my do not disturb on. I gotta change the setting to like maybe earlier. I was doing it from 10 to like 6. I now I'm doing stuff earlier in the day. I need to change it to like 8 or something. I don't know what's going on. Crazy talk. Okay, I'm on you. Says now I'm on YouTube. Okay. A second ago, I said I wasn't on YouTube. But yeah, it's I gotta change the settings on these things. Well, good morning though. Anyway, welcome, welcome, welcome. Happy Tuesday. We're gonna talk about a subject that's not the greatest, folks, of course. Handling disappointments. I have my coffee, which is not disappointing me. Mm. And for anybody who needs to hear this, tune in, sit back, relax. If you're listening to this on the audio podcast, hello, audio podcast listener. Thank you. Like, subscribe, comment. Wherever you find this, follow. It's a follow button. So I'm going to start. Oh, a friend of mine just started a video too at the same time. A friend of mine, we both started videos at the same time. Oh, I'm wearing these glasses because I can't look at the computer without them at the moment. These are my shaded glasses. I can't find the real ones. So, where are my real ones? I must be over there somewhere. Okay. Hello and disappointment. What is that? Actually, these glasses have smudge on them. It's like getting my nerves. Ooh, get back on. Okay. Disappointment. Handling disappointments. I've been dealing with that recently. Everybody does. Things happen, and you're disappointed. The easy thing to tell people is don't feel disappointed. Just let it go. And oh my goodness, and don't let people get to you. And that's all nice and wonderful and great. But I'm always here talking about the realness of stuff. And then trying to handle it in real ways. I feel like you have any emotion you have, you should feel it. Now, how you handle it and how you react to other people is another story. But initial emotions, you should be able to feel what your emotion is. Chances are you have a reason why you feel it. So feel it. Disappointment, a lot of times, yes, we know where it's born out of an expectation of somebody doing something a certain way, right? Or expecting somebody to be a certain way, and they don't. Some disappointments are really valid, and you're just like, oh, sometimes you're really surprised somebody doesn't do something a certain way. Some people, oh, is that just white hair? Oh, that's his tongue lips. Some people act a certain way, then all of a sudden stop acting that certain way. I always call it changing the rules. Right? Some people will change the rules, they don't tell you. You're like, oh, changing the rules. I didn't know this was happening now. Or you go into a meeting, or like here in Hollywood, go into an audition, and you really want this job or this role, and you don't get it. So there's different types of disappointment that happen in different ways. But I feel like you should feel the initial emotion of it. Well, it was a little sadness, anger, whatever it is, you feel it because you're human. But then you got to go into the reason why you're disappointed and handle that, of course. And you can try to minimize disappointments throughout time. But you will still always, I think on some level, you'll always be disappointed in something. Can't help it. It's life. For me, for example, when it comes to, I had a recent death in my life, and I've had many in my life. And there's some folks I just know from experience who will be right there. They'll be right there, whether it's a phone call or a text or in person. What do you need? I'm so sorry. Your shoulder crying. There's some folks I just know always be there. Then there are folks who you may have not gone through it yet with them, and it's their first one, and you assume, which you should never assume, of course, that's one thing, but you may assume from their actions throughout time, they'd be a type of person who will call or text and do all this stuff too, and they don't. So there's your disappointment there. You're thinking, wow, this person is shown to be there for me in many other ways, but when it comes to death, nothing. Now, you can feel the emotional disappointment, but then you have to decide before you act out on it. That's where you have to stop everything. Before you act on it, you have to go, okay, where is it coming from? And maybe this could be happening. So one of the things I had to learn after a while was, because now I get little mini disappointments, but I don't get upset anymore. It's just like, oh, that's kind of, I'm just surprised person didn't say anything. Okay. And I kind of move on because I've learned from all the deaths that I've gone through, everyone handles death differently. For some people, they never had death in their life. I know folks who've never had a major death in their life yet. They're grown-ups. I've not had one. So they don't really know how to handle it. They see death. They literally don't know how to be there. You would think they should know how to be there, but they don't. You can't know something you've never been through it, right? Or done before sometimes. And you have to forgive them, put it aside, let it slide, because they just don't know how to respond. Because death is a very major thing, and everyone who's going through a death goes through it differently. You can only imagine trying to go in and decipher that and how to handle it. Even me, I'm an experienced person who's dealt with death. There are times where I'm at a loss, like I don't know how to comfort you, I don't know how to say it, because everybody handles it so differently. So I just think that that's one of those situations where I give a pass for a lot of people, and say, okay, well, they just know how to do that, or they've had their own deaths in their life that they can't, they're still trying to deal with those. They can't even begin to take on yours and deal with yours too. So it's like they just kind of stay on the sidelines. They wait till things smooth out a little bit, and they may come contact you. And maybe later they'll do something really sweet for you. May not be in that exact moment, but maybe later. And that could happen also. And so, but it goes to it goes to people have their own reactions to death. So you may be disappointed if someone doesn't call or text when you post, I lost my stepmom, or I lost my sister, or my brother. You put it all out there, no one, and you have people that you talk to every day, and all of a sudden they don't say nothing to you. Now, also another thing too, you have to remember when it comes to online, and I'm learning this also because there's another disappointment thing that happens out there. People's habits. I remember the other day I was talking to somebody, and they were saying, I posted this thing. I know I did a show, and the person who was on my show hasn't shared it. And I said, what are their habits? And they're like, what? I go, well, when was the last time they posted online? Everyone is different. So yes, it's disappointing, and you should feel that kind of disappointment of like, we did the show together. I promoted on my end. Why didn't they promote on their end right away? I understand that part. But some folks just are not online every day. Some folks post, and what we did later, we did some research, they hadn't posted 2-3 days. So it's one of those things you kind of go, well, that's just, their patterns are just different. They don't post every day. They're not on there all the time. So it's nothing against you. They just don't, they didn't find the urgency, they just didn't do it. So that's when you talk to them and say, hi, I know you don't post that often, you're not that often. Can you just please post this? And also any publicity of the show you've done, doesn't matter if it's today, tomorrow, next week, it still adds to the longevity of the views of the show or downloads or whatever. It's still part of the numbers. So it's like, okay, if it has to be, if I do all production, if I do all the promotion Monday through Thursday that week, and they finally promoted Friday, Saturday, it's still good. That's the whole week's worth of promotion. It'll still get out there, it'll keep it going, maybe. Because sometimes things die down after a few days. So that could be a good thing too. And I think that's, but I understand disappointment of at first going, well, they didn't say nothing. Like, why aren't they out there? But people's habits are so different. I used to go on TikTok every day. And I remember for a 2-month period, I was so busy. I was hitting it once every 1 to 7, 8 days. I was like, oops. And I myself, I was like, oh my God, I've done TikTok in 8. I've been on TikTok in 8 days. That also goes with the sharing and stuff of yours. And you'll see these memes, like you should share real stuff. I do all the time. I try to share real stuff all the time. But I also realized, like me, people send me messages all the time. I don't get to them all the time. I don't really, a lot of times I'm not on those platforms hanging out. A lot of times I'm posting my stuff and promoting, I do a lot of stuff. I'm promoting my stuff. So there have been folks disappointed at me because I haven't gotten back to them. They sent me messages like 2 weeks ago. I'm like, I didn't, because I haven't looked at the messages. I have a million messages. I haven't looked at them. It's a part-time, full-time job being online, social media. And if you get 20 messages a day, and you have to be one of those people who send me a message, and I haven't looked at the messages in like 7 days. It's 140 messages. I mean, by the time it gets to that point, I'm like, I don't have time to go through all these messages. I'm like, I just don't do it. Or I finally do it, and then maybe 2 or 3 weeks later, I finally do it, and I go through each message. There's times I'll set aside time to do that and see if any of them are serious. It happens. It just really does. I have people on TikTok who send me, I send videos to them, they send videos to me. That you see my video, I'm like, sorry, I have like 10,000 videos in my messages. I haven't had the time to sit and do it. I'm busy promoting, I'm busy putting stuff out, I'm busy creating content. I try to scroll if I can, and sometimes it may be only quick. And if a couple of my friends, but the algorithm's so weird, on all these places. If your thing comes up, I can promote it. I try to do it really fast. Hit the thing, share it, get it out there. It's one of those things. But it's habits. People have different habits that they don't know what they're doing. They have different habits. You just don't know. So it's one of those things. Disappointment. I feel like sometimes you're allowed to actually have the emotion at first, of maybe feeling a little some type of a way about something. But it's all about reaction. That's the next step. But first is like, yes, you're allowed to have your feelings. You're allowed to feel sad if people you care about don't respond to you, or don't mention something that happened in your life that's good or bad. Maybe you have an exciting announcement, and half your friends don't say anything. It's like, okay. Because I have one friend who's really funny, because I had this death in my life recently, and I posted it, and I would have swore I saw this person actually like the photo. They didn't comment on the photo or anything. And a couple days later, I'm mentioning this, like it's almost like it was new news for them. So I'm like, did you really read my post? Do you know what's going on? Like, I mean, and that's that. There's that too. Some folks don't really read stuff. They don't. They like pictures. They go about their business. And that's just how it is. And it's very interesting, because you're the one left, because you're the one who's in the emotion. You're in the moment. So it's very big for you. It's like everything it's right in your face. It's very big for you. So you have to kind of remember that it's not happening to them, it's happening to you. So you kind of have to feel like you gotta be careful how you respond back. Um, and there are some people who are just selfish. There's some folks who they just don't really give a crap. But most people do, and they're not that selfish. They just don't know. That's what you have to feel like. So it comes to stuff like that. I think about that. When it comes to this business, there are folks who disappoint you all the time, where you're trying to help somebody. That's me. A lot of times I try to help people in the business. I mentor a lot of people, but I also try to help people, just like literally give them jobs, or a place to my shows, and they disappoint you that way too. I have one person I've had on the show. I won't start outing people. I don't want to do that. I had one of my shows years ago, and we had a great conversation. It was wonderful. And then I tried to get this person back on the show again, and they just didn't respond. Okay, life goes on. But then they responded to me years later and said, "We got on my show." I go back to them, sure. When do you want to come on? What do you want to talk about? Crickets. Don't hear anything. Then like a year later, they messaged me again. I'm just going to show. I'm like, sure. What? Then it happened like twice over like a couple of year period where they don't answer. And I was like, well, you just asked me you want to be on my show. I have shows for you. Why aren't you answering me? And then I just stopped. They've requested several times since. I don't even answer back anymore. I don't think I don't have time for this kind of I mean, just either answer me or don't. I mean, I don't have time for shenanigans. You're coming to me to be on my show. So that's the point that they didn't answer, and they were reaching out to me. And yes, they could have gotten busy, and I don't. It's just weird to me. It's like, if you want something, especially in this business will walk all over you. It will keep you. It will just keep going. Whether you can be laying on the ground, it will step over you and keep on walking. You have to be on top of your game. I'm sorry, it's one thing I don't accept. If you want to be on one of my shows, you have to come to me, tell me why you want to be on my shows. Let's work it out now and make it happen. You can't just keep messaging me and disappearing. And I'm not interested. It's like, interested. Then you have folks who come to you for an opportunity, and you give it to them, and you're so nice about it. I'm a very nice person. I'm very nice about it, accommodating. I try to uh, be there for folks, and they turn on you a little bit, or they get smart with you, or they say something that's like, that's not. I would never say that to somebody, like biting the hand that feeds you kind of thing. I've had several times happen recently, and I'm like, wow, I am so surprised. I had one person who was on one of my shows who totally got smart with me about the way I was doing my show. And I was like, okay, I would never talk to a producer a certain way, or a director a certain way. I would just expect if I did that, I'd be fired. especially in this business. And you do is goodbye. Or any boss, you go to a boss and say, "There's one way. There's ways to talk to people. Um, there's ways to bring things up and for discussion. I'm always open for discussion. I say that all the time in my groups and when I do, I'm always here like, yeah, let's talk about this. What do you want to talk about? Let's figure it out. If you have an issue, let's talk about it. I have no problem. But it was the way that it was done over something that was so simple. And what always gets me is when you have done wrong and I gave you chances, then later you come at me like, but I got a couple things slide. I talked to you about this one thing and we worked it out. But you're not willing to talk it out with me. You're going to tell me what to do. I did not like that, and I'm basically fired that person because I was disappointed. But I thought about it before I fired that person. Before I decided I'm not going to work with that person anymore. I looked over the course of time and saw you missed something here. You missed a meeting here. You just didn't show up one day to a meeting and never communicated at all through that whole time, but you couldn't make it. Just I'm working. Like, okay, well, I don't know what that means, but I say okay. But so I still worked it all out with you, and I still try to make it work. Try to be a little flexible. In Hollywood, people aren't flexible. I try to be flexible, and also because we're during a pandemic, we're during this kind of COVID time. There are certain practices we're doing that are not normal practices. It's just different. But if I ask you a question and everyone else answers it, but your response to me is you don't like the way I'm asking the question, and then you try to proceed to tell me how to do my job, I was disappointed. I put all of that together and came up with a decision. Didn't go off, didn't even scream and yell in the moment or anything. I took a beat. Sometimes you got to do it. When you have a disappointment, take a beat. You have a chance, kind of think about it for a second, and then just realize what's best for you. If that means saying goodbye to somebody, or it means you need to talk to them fully, I mean, whatever it is, take that beat, step back and go, okay, take a second. Because you don't want to act in just pure emotion. You want to act on facts. You want to act on some emotion, of course, but facts. You want to look at the whole picture and just go, okay, is this really worth anything that I need to take care of? Is it just small? Shall I let it go? Or is it big enough that I need to address it and go, no. And that's how I felt with certain people. I was like, I let some folks go. And sometimes it's actually they'll do stuff that actually is the answer to how you respond. If someone's not available, they can't make themselves available for a project they said they were available for, and they can't, all of a sudden they can't, then if you have to let them go, it's not really your hands are tied. Like it's like not anybody's fault. I know nowadays with these cemeteries and mortuaries and stuff with the COVID, they have restrictions. You only have so many people at a viewing, so many people at a burial. It's like it's not your fault. This is what the rules are. Your hands are tied, so you're just disappointed. This is how it is right now. So if someone's disappointed to you, you just go, okay, well, I can't do anything. This is what they said. I can't break the rules. I mean, they won't allow us to do that. So if someone says they can work this job, and then suddenly they can't, and you're on your own production schedule, you have things you have to do, the show must go on, then you can just explain to them. You don't have to go off or anything, just explain to them. They say, here's the facts. I need this show done by this time. You're not available as you said you were. I know unless you are, I have to get somebody else. And for some people, I've saved them for other projects. Okay, I'll save for another project. I said, you just can't do this project for right now. I'll save for another project. I had somebody get back to me a month later, answer email a month later. Again, I'm learning that also. Email. Now everybody answers emails the same way either. And I know emails are crazy, especially if you get a lot of junk mail and stuff. It can be crazy. And I know for me, it wasn't until last year during the pandemic that I got control of my emails. Woo, because I know I have it. Because it's. I mean, no, that one I understand. It can be crazy because it's like you have so many emails, you just don't get to them all. And I have something about email management. I mean, I finally found a way to do it. But it's tough. But you have to also remember, certain folks do not handle their emails or go on and check their emails every day. And so I've had to say to certain people, check your emails. Because I kept getting disappointed because I would say something and then no one and that person would respond. Everybody else responded. You're like, why aren't you responding? Everybody else did. Some people just they don't do that. They don't have either don't have a job that's like that or a lifestyle that's like that. But for me, most of the time, that's my ding. Most of the time, that's the only way I communication. It's through email. Sometimes it's text, but again, I don't like sending group texts on phones. Oh, I hate group texts. More like myself. I don't like doing that because then you're hearing about else's. First, I don't want anybody to have my number, but emails are different. So I go, we're at an email. Here you go. So it's very interesting. Very interesting there. So it's kind of so disappointments will happen. You'll feel mad or sad, like God, I wish that worked out. I really wanted that. I had a show that I ended up cutting short because I couldn't. The actors couldn't get together. It was too crazy. Um, you know, I have somebody send me an email right now. Like all of a sudden. Yeah. So it's completely. I went blank. That email I saw an email on my phone and made me go, oh, I got to answer that question. And so I went blank. That's so okay. That's funny. See, not disappointment. This is great stuff. Nothing bad here. I forgot what I was gonna say, but yes, you have to kind of sit back and go, okay, things are going to happen. They're not the greatest. It's okay, and then take a beat, sit back and go, okay, this is what I'm going to do and how I'm going to handle it, and look at within yourself why you're disappointed. Sometimes it's your stuff. Sometimes it's my stuff. Sometimes it's my stuff. Sometimes some things trigger me, and I go, oh, that's a trigger. That's a trigger. Sometimes it's meant to be. I mean, certain things don't happen. There's no rhyme or reason why you didn't get picked. It could be because they didn't like your hair. They think your beard is too much. I mean, it could be they wanted to hire the boyfriend of so and so. Sometimes there's things behind the scenes you just don't know about. So it's okay to feel sad about it for a second and whatever, and feel the emotion. But go, okay, dust yourself off, pick yourself, and go, okay, well, that wasn't meant to be. And that's what you want to get to that point where you're like, you feel it, and then you find a way to move on. And if it's a trigger for you, becomes a pattern, then you should stop. I'll say stop, drop, and roll. You should stop and then really look at that and look inward and see why is this thing always making you upset? Are you putting yourself in situations that this happens all the time that sets you up for disappointment? Are you always expecting certain things from people and you're just not getting them? You got to do the work for yourself and look at it and go, okay, let me look at this. And a life coach can help you do that, like myself, and for hire, of course. That's the thing. You have to kind of look at yourself and go, there's things I look at myself and go, oh, that's me. That's all my stuff. I know where it comes from. I know how it feels. I have to learn how to handle it. And there's times I do little timeouts. You know what? I'm timing out of this for a while. Let me try to handle it. So when I go back into it, it's a whole different story. And so I'm handling things a lot differently now than I have before. I'm still working through stuff too that I'm trying to handle. But disappointment's hard. It's hard, especially when you put high regard in certain people or places or things, and it doesn't work out that way. It's just tough. No one should be put on a pedestal, of course. No one should be put on high, super high anything. But it just happens. You have people that you expect to do stuff and they just don't. You're like, okay, there you go. So that's my little way of handling disappointment. I'll probably have more discussions on this. It's just like a discussion number one. I mean, there's a million things to talk about in this subject. But I was thinking about that this morning, and I want to share that with you. A Lot of Help with James Lott Jr. is one of my biggest shows on audio podcasts. It's like one of my top 5 shows. Thank you so much for listening to this. And if you're watching it, thanks for watching it. I totally appreciate it. Here this morning on the live. I'm trying to do more live stuff. Thank you so much for listening. But share with anybody who thinks to hear this. Any comments of your own, please share. I love reading, especially on these shows. I love reading your comments on health and wellness and how do you feel? Do you think I'm wrong? Do you think I'm right? I mean, I want to hear what you have to say. So go ahead and comment below. Follow me at James Lott Jr. wherever you find this, or JLJ Media. Like it, subscribe, comment the channel. I have all kinds of goodies. Have a great rest of your week today. Someone say have a great rest of your week today. Have a great